is nothing united in many states of America. They are, in fact, deeply divided states in crisis.
More than 350. That's the estimated number of cities in which protests have taken place in America in the last 24 hours.
Across the nation, thousands of Americans are taking to the streets to voice their anguish over the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis.
There was a lot packed into such a short piece. I thought the documentary started off really strong, and it continued that way throughout the entire thing. They did a really good job of showing the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. Everything was edited really well, and the audio that accompanied the footage was just perfect. They really captured the spirit of the protests, and I loved the end. It was so uplifting to see everybody come together, and with the inclusion of that song too, it was just, it ended on a really hopeful note, and I appreciated the positivity. Good job with this one.
The slow motion destruction of the police car, I think, was one of those pivotal moments that you see all over the news and symbolizes a shift in culture and what people aren't willing to stand for anymore. So it was a really interesting piece to be able to be on the ground, feeling like you are truly part of the crowd without any real commentary on it. You just kind of got to immerse yourself in the experience and be there on the ground as this is happening at this shift in time. It had the nuance and just letting the images unfold, but there was this hopefulness right at the end of the rebuilding and the potential rebuilding in a new way, with once oppressed communities or unheard communities having a say in how it rebuilds in a capitalist society. So I thought it was really interesting, and yeah, I felt treated to an insider view at this moment.
LA Rises is such a powerful, powerful short film. That moment where the crowd got to the line of police and it was just complete silence I had goosebumps. It was so intense. And, you know, I think that this film really perfectly captured the feelings of the crowd, the feelings of the city, the feelings of the world during that time. And it's, you know, it's always hard to watch. It's always hard to see and to listen to. But what I also thought that the film did a great job was ending on a note of hope and possibility and support and solidarity versus despair and anger and resentment. So I feel like it really took the audience on a journey, left us feeling with, you know, that drop of there is hope for a better future, for a better tomorrow, and we're stronger than the adversity that we face. Yeah, this was a really, really wonderful film. I loved the sound clips that they used, and I absolutely loved the version of Rise Up at the end of the film. So, wonderful job.
Definitely a very heavy topic. Unfortunately, and it definitely... I'm not happy that I have to say it like this, but a very controversial topic. Obviously, as you can see by the color of my skin, I am black. Black Lives Matter has had a surprising... I guess the best way I can phrase it is... there are certain things that we as a country have been very fractured about. The concept of Black Lives Matter has been one of them. And the reason I bring this up is because for every documentary that is supportive of the cause, there is also a documentary that labels the Black Lives Matter movement as essentially terroristic actions that protesters are innate animals who only want to spread chaos and violence. And I do appreciate that the documentary addresses that with the clip where it says, you know, sometimes you have to ask, why is this violent reaction happening, rather than trying to quell it. But I do know that the documentary reminded me of just how split reactions are for this. Especially how this protest would be seen as a threat to the nation, and then something else that may happen may be seen as vigilante justice, you know? This documentary showed me that we still have a lot of work to do as a nation when it comes to our relations with our fellow man, because and maybe it's been for longer, and maybe my eyes have just been closed this entire time, but ever since about 2016, it's definitely felt like we've been very fractured as a nation, very split, very divided, and it definitely hurts that watching something that should feel empowering makes me nervous, because I know that there's someone out there who sees this as a threat, sees me as a threat, and that's very concerning.
I thought this was really interesting. I live in LA, and so some of those at the end, when they were showing the montage of some of the murals and things that had been painted in kind of the aftermath of some of the damage and protests, and also in, you know, a huge part due to the pandemic with things actually being closed, stores being closed and whatnot. Some of those I've seen and driven past on a daily basis, which was interesting. Being in LA during that time was a really interesting experience. At the time I was living in downtown Long Beach, where the Pike was looted and had a lot of violence. The National Guard was called out. So seeing this kind of a little bit of but then a lot of the actual footage from different protests around the cities was really interesting. And then to see kind of like the aftermath and the kind of recovery process after in, you know, my own town, my own city, was really interesting to kind of see the full picture with so much actual footage. I thought that was really interesting. It was really inspiring. I think the message needs to continue to be put out and continue to be talked about, and the issue needs to be continually pressed. So I think movies like this are fantastic.
This was a great film. I loved the way that they did this. The beginning of this was really well done. It was also really, really hard to watch. You know, I was here in Los Angeles, like I lived through all of the rioting and the looting and the violence. That was difficult. That was rough. Because I think what happened to not only George Floyd, but Breonna Taylor and countless others who our government, our police have failed. Our system has failed them, and things need to change. I think that this represented all of those people beautifully, especially the second half of this. Watching an entire community come together to repair the damage that was done, to put up artwork that signified unity and love and hope, is just so inspirational. Makes me think that we don't have to stay stuck in old patterns, that we can embrace change and make it for the better of all of us as one people. Thank you for making this. Sorry, getting a little choked up. Thank you for making this. This was an absolutely beautiful film.
It is a reminder to all of us of the passions that can be brought to bear by the injustices when they are not addressed. It is written by Cassandra Monique Betier and Jennifer De Silvio. It is a product of the Olivon studio in Los Angeles, which does a number of interesting and cutting edge projects. Oliver Ponce is the cinematographer. I recommend LA Rises to anyone who wants to get a better sense as to what may really be happening on the streets of America.
This has very crude scenes from protests in Los Angeles in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. They show powerful images of multitudes standing up against police brutality and the outrageous disregard for human lives, just like George Floyd. I like their showcasing of two phrases. Riot is the language of the unheard, and it comes a time when silence is betrayal. I think those are very powerful. And paired with this beautiful song, Rise Up, it's just a perfect complement to the title and the overall film. It's just so enraging that these things are still happening. And it's just, I'm glad production of these films are still going on, so we keep awareness always on. This was an excellent job.